have discussed the different cell organelles such as mitochondria, Golgi complex, then ribosomes, lysosomes, microtubules. ये सारी चीजें हम लोगों ने डिस्कस की थी. And we have also discussed about the nucleus and its component. That is the nuclear membrane, nucleolus, chromatin, or the chromosomes which are present in the nucleus, which is responsible for carrying the genetic material from one generation to the another generation. And this nuclear chromosomes are the carrier of the characteristics of the particular species of animal and the plants. Okay. And in the same way, we have discussed about the nucleolus, which is the central dense part of the nucleus. So all these things we have discussed in the last two classes, in which we were studying the cell biology and their activities. Okay. Now today we will discuss about the biomolecules. Now biomolecules are also the important component of the cell, and these biomolecules are the components which are related to the living organism, as the name suggests. That is the molecule which is responsible for the life. Okay. So in the biomolecules, these are the ions or the molecules that are present in the living organism and which are essential for some biological process carrying or going in the cell. Okay. Such as morphogenesis, development, metabolic reactions, respiration. Okay. All these are the different chemical processes taking place in the cell and the organism, and these chemical processes are taking place just because of the biomolecules present in the living organism. So if the biomolecules are not present in the living organism, that process are not possible. Okay. So I'll start sharing the PPT now. This is the presentation, and I'm sharing the presentation for you all. Okay. सब लोगों को स्क्रीन दिख रही है बेटा?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
So first is the biomolecules. जैसे मैंने पहले भी बताया था, that molecules or ions which are present in the living organism are the biomolecules. So these molecules and ions are responsible for carrying out the different functions in the living organism, and these are very important for the living organism. So living organism में हमारे पास दोनों plants और animals दोनों आते हैं. ठीक है. So plant is also a living organism, and animal as well as the animal is also a living organism. Now plants and animals के अलावा we have the microorganism which also comes under the category of the living organism. So these molecules which are present in the living organism are the biomolecules, and there is a sum total of different types of biomolecules. We have the different types of biomolecules, compounds, and the ions present in our cell. Okay. So these are known as the cellular pool. It means the cellular components responsible for carrying the different activities in the cell. Now cell is a living organism because different changes are taking place inside the cell. Last class में हम लोगों ने डिस्कस किया था, जैसे माइटोकॉन्ड्रिया है. माइटोकॉन्ड्रिया इज नोन एज द पावर हाउस ऑफ द सेल. इट इज यूज्ड टू जनरेट द एनर्जी, and that energy is utilized by the cell in the various process. Okay. जैसे सेल डिविजन हो रहे हैं या फिर मेटाबॉलिक एक्टिविटीज है which are taking place in the cell, that activities are just getting the energy from the ATP, adenosine triphosphate molecule, which is produced by the mitochondria of the cell. So mitochondria is a type of organelle which is present in the cell. Okay. So these biomolecules are generally, basically, these are the compounds of carbon. Okay. They are the carbon compounds, and these carbon compounds are very important for the living organism. So the chemistry of the living organism is organized around the carbon. Okay. जितने भी compounds हैं which are necessary for running the life, all these compounds are basically the organic compounds, and organic compounds are the compounds which contains the chemistry of the carbon compounds. Okay. So carbon is the most versatile and important predominant element of the life. So the element which is present in the living organism are the hydrogen. In the earth crust, it is present around 0.14 percentage is present in the earth crust, and living matter में 0.5 percentage. Next, carbon 0.03 percentage is present in the earth crust, and around 18.5% of carbon is present in the living organism. In the same way, oxygen is also a very important component, and nowadays because of the COVID, oxygen is becomes very important for living organism, and there is a crisis of the oxygen. ठीक है, तो हम लोग समझ सकते हैं कि ऑक्सीजन जो है कितनी इंपॉर्टेंट है. इसको क्या कहा जाता है? दैट इज दी लाइफ सपोर्टिंग सिस्टम, है ना. ऑक्सीजन प्राणवायु उसको कहा जाता है. सो दिस ऑक्सीजन इज वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट, एंड विदाउट ऑक्सीजन वी कैन नॉट सर्वाइव ऑन द अर्थ. So the percentage of the oxygen which is present in the non-living substances is 46.6, and in the living substances around 65% of oxygen is present. So plant is the great source of the oxygen. They can respirate, they can generate the oxygen by utilizing the carbon dioxide, water and the sunlight. Okay. So in the photosynthesis process, the carbon dioxide is used and oxygen is generated. So हम लोग समझ सकते हैं कि plant कितना important है. Okay. Now next we have the nitrogen. Nitrogen is the very less amount of nitrogen is present in the non-living portion, and around 3.3% of nitrogen is present in the living matter. In the same way, we have the sulfur. Sulfur in the living matter around 0.3% sulfur is there, and in the non-living percentage, it is around 0.03%. Now sodium is 2.8% in the non-living and 0.2% in the living. Calcium around 3.6% in the non-living and 1.5%. In the same way, magnesium and silicons. All these nitrogen, sulfur, sodium, calcium, magnesium, these are the salts which are present in the living organism, and it is very important for the living organism. Okay? Now, atoms, two molecules. Now, these biomolecules, molecule word hai, it means that molecule is formed from the atoms. Okay? So the atoms combines and they form the molecule. So there is a chemical bonding taking place in an atom, and through this chemical bonding, this atom combines and they forms a molecules. So small molecules and large molecules, all these molecules are formed just because of the bonding of the atoms. Okay. Now after this, there are some important functional groups which are present in the biomolecules, and as we all know, these functional groups are very important for the cell. जैसे hydrogen है, this hydrogen is present in the carbohydrate, that is carbon and its compound. तो skeleton जो हमारा main backbone होता है कार्बन का, that main backbone is a chain of carbon, and that chain of carbon contains the large number of hydrogen molecule, hydrogen atom attached to the carbon. Okay. So carbon is a strong function, small important function group, and this carbon has both polar and non-polar properties, and which is depends upon the atom hydrogen which is bonded to, and it is involved in the dehydration and hydrolysis reactions. Okay. So this hydrogen is very important, and it is found almost in all organic molecules. So कोई भी ऐसा organic molecule नहीं है जिसमें hydrogen present नहीं होता है. Because जैसे मैंने पहले भी बताया था कि कार्बन चेन है, in the carbon chain hydrogen molecule is present. So hydrocarbon में just generally it is a molecule containing the hydrogen and the carbon, है ना. Important unit is the hydrogen and the carbon. Now after this, next function group is the hydroxide, OH. Now this OH has the property polar in nature. It is polar in nature, and it involves the dehydration and hydrolysis reaction. Okay. Now here along with the polar, this carbohydrate is present in carbohydrate, nucleic acid, alcohol, some acid and steroids. All these contains the hydroxide group. Okay. Now next is the carboxylic acid group, that is the COOH. It is a very important function group which is present in the living and the non-living organism. Now this carboxylic acid group involves the acidic and it involves the peptide bonds. ठीक है, peptide bonds में हमारा acid group get attached with the amine group, and there is a removal of the H2O. The peptide bond में CO or NH bond bonding होती है. ठीक है, and it is present in the amino acids and the fatty acids. Next important functional group is the amino, NH2. ठीक है, and this is the basic in nature. and it is may bond an additional H plus ion. Okay. Now it becomes positive जब यहाँ पर NH2 में H plus ion attach होता है, because NH2 means the nitrogen has a lone pair of electron. So this electrolyte, this H plus ion get at electrophile get attached to the amino group NH2 group, and यहाँ पर हमारा जो charge हो जाएगा that is NH3 हो जाएगा, NH3 plus. ठीक है. So when the hydrogen get attached to the amino group, it becomes positively charged, and it also involves in peptide bonds. Okay. So this amino group is present in the amino acid and the nucleic acid. Now after this, next functional group which is very important is the phosphate group, H2PO4. Now this phosphate group is acidic in nature and it links to the nucleotides in nucleic acids. This is the energy carrier group in ATP, है ना. ATP में मैंने आप लोगों को बताया था कि adenosine triphosphate में there is an adenosine diphosphate molecule, and this diphosphate molecule में एक phosphate group attached रहता है, and when the reaction takes place, this phosphate group is released and the ATP molecule is converted to ADP. Adenosine triphosphate is converted to adenosine diphosphate. Okay. So this ADP molecule plus one phosphate group. So ये जो हमारा phosphate group release होता है, that phosphate group gives around 700,000 calories of energy. So we can imagine कि कितनी ज़्यादा energy release होती है by the conversion of ATP into the ADP, adenosine triphosphate to adenosine diphosphate. Okay. Now this nucleic acid, यहाँ पर जो हमारा है adenosine phosphate is found in the nucleic acid in the phospholipid. Now हम लोग जब lipids पढ़ेंगे तो उसमें मैं आप लोगों को बताऊंगी. उसके बाद next is the methyl group. Now this methyl group is generally non-polar in nature and it tends to make the molecules hydrophobic. Okay, it provides the hydrophobic nature. Now, generally, many organic molecules, they are found in many organic molecules, and generally it is common in the lipids. Okay. Now, after this, next, we have the differentiation of the biomolecule. That was the basic of the biomolecule, which was very important. And how the biomolecule is differentiated, we can differentiate into two categories, that is classify into the two categories, organic biomolecules and inorganic biomolecules. Now these organic biomolecules includes the minerals, gases, water, H2O molecule. Gases, various gases are present in the atmosphere such as carbon dioxide, oxygen, nitrogen, and the oxides of the nitrogen, oxides of carbon, oxides of sulfur. Okay, all these gases are present in the atmosphere, and some gases are harmful and some gases are useful to us. Next, we have the mineral salt. These mineral salts are the salts of various metals such as sodium, potassium, calcium, magnesium, iron. All these are the elements which are important for the living organism or for the body of the living organism. So this is the inorganic part. Next, we have the organic part, and this organic part includes the carbon and its compound. That is, there is a carbohydrate, which is very important. And along with the carbohydrate, next one is the lipid. It is a fat molecule. Then next we have the amino acids, which is the building block of the protein. And the protein, we have the enzymes, nucleotides, nucleic acids, vitamins. Now, nucleic acid contains the DNA and the RNA, okay, which is very important for carrying the genetic materials. So all these are the organic biomolecules, which is important for the living. Now, after the organic biomolecules, the biomolecules are also classified according to size of the biomolecule. That is the macromolecule and the micromolecule. Now, on the classification according to the size, in the microbiomolecules, generally micro means small, minute. Okay. So as the name suggests, it is a small sized biomolecule having the low molecular weight between 18 to 800 Dalton. And they are generally found in the acid soluble pool. Okay. So small size biomolecules contains the minerals, mineral salts, gases, water, sugar, amino acids, and nucleotides. These are the small size biomolecules or the microbiomolecules. Now, next category of the biomolecule is the macrobiomolecule. Now this macrobiomolecule is the large in size, having the high molecular weight around above 10,000 Dalton, and is found in the acid soluble pool. Again, macrobiomolecules includes the carbohydrate, lipid, proteins, and nucleic acid. They are the larger in size in comparison to the microbiomolecule. Now, next biomolecule is the what are the important complex biomolecules which are present in the cell. Okay, जैसे मैंने पहले भी बताया था कि cell is a living organism made up of the biomolecules. So here the protein is the important biomolecule of the cell, and main building block of the protein is the amino acid. Amino acid means the compound which contains the acidic group plus amino group, NH2 group or COOH group. Okay, amino acid, as the name suggests. Then the major function of the protein is it provides the basic structure and function of the cell. Okay, so this protein gives the structure of the cell, and it gives the provides the function. Now next is the DNA. DNA means deoxyribonucleic acid, and it contains the hereditary information. जैसे मैंने पहले भी बताया था, DNA contains the genetic material having the characteristics of a particular species. Okay. Next is the RNA, ribonucleic acid, and this RNA is very important, which is used in the protein synthesis. Okay. So प्रोटीन कोई मॉलिक्यूल तो होना चाहिए जिससे प्रोटीन सिंथेसाइज हो, प्रोटीन का फॉर्मेशन हो. So this protein synthesis or the formation of the protein takes place just because of the RNA, ribose nucleic acid. उसके बाद next is the polysaccharide, and polysaccharides are made up of the monosaccharide units. These are the carbohydrates, and they are the storage form of energy. They are used to store the energy. Next is the lipid. Lipid has the smallest building block, that is the fatty acid and glycerol. These are the building blocks of the lipid. And again, the major function of the lipid is the storage form of the energy to meet a long term demand. देखिए कार्बोहाइड्रेट जनरली जैसे ग्लूकोज होता है, ग्लूकोज इंस्टेंट एनर्जी प्रोवाइड करता है, एंड इट इज ऑल्सो यूज टू स्टोर द एनर्जी. एंड अगर हमें लॉन्ग टर्म के लिए एनर्जी स्टोर करना है तो लिपिड मॉलिक्यूल्स में स्टोर करते हैं, जैसे फैट है ना. फैट, if the body stores the fat cells होते हैं which is present in our body, and these cells are working as a storage place for the energy. They stores the energy, and this energy is slowly utilized by the cell of the body. Okay? So these are the complex biomolecules of the cell. बेटा आप लोगों को क्लियर हो रहा है?
Yes,
Yes,
ma'am.
ma'am.
Okay. Now next biomolecule is the carbohydrate. It is very important. Now these carbohydrates are the most abundant organic molecule in nature. They are present in the large percentage in the nature. And carbohydrate, जैसे मैंने पहले ही बताया था, through the photosynthesis, plants food prepare करते हैं, and that food is in the form of carbohydrate, which is prepared by the plant by utilizing the sunlight, carbon dioxide, and water molecule. Now this term carbohydrate is generally a French word. Okay, and the carbohydrates are defined as the organic substances having the carbon, hydrogen, and the oxygen, where hydrogen and oxygen are present in 2:1 ratio. ठीक है. So हाइड्रोजन और ऑक्सीजन को जैसे हमारे टू मॉलिक्यूल्स अगर हाइड्रोजन है तो वन मॉलिक्यूल ऑक्सीजन होगा, तो रेशियो जो होता है हाइड्रोजन का और ऑक्सीजन का जो परसेंटेज होता है इट इज जस्ट डबल. हाइड्रोजन जस्ट डबल प्रेजेंट होगा, ऑक्सीजन उसका हाफ होगा. So this is the ratio of the carbohydrate, hydrogen and oxygen molecule in the carbohydrate. Now, what are the important functions of the carbohydrate? That is very important. Now, this carbohydrate is a most abundant source of energy. It is used to store the energy. That is 4 calorie per gram. This much amount of energy is present in the carbohydrate. Okay. Now, this is the precursor for many organic compounds. जैसे fat है, amino acids हैं. So it is used as a precursor for the many organic compounds, and just it is present as a glycoprotein and glycolipids in the cell membrane. मैंने पहले बताया था कि सेल मेम्ब्रेन में, दैट इज द प्लाज्मा मेम्ब्रेन, इज मेड अप ऑफ प्रोटीन लेयर, lipid layer and protein layer. So this lipid is sandwiched between the plasma, between the protein layers. ठीक है, तो this carbohydrate is used present in the glycoprotein form or in the glycolipid forms in the cell membrane, and they are function as the cell growth and the fertilization. ठीक है, तो ये हमारा जो cell growth हो रहा है, that cell growth is taking place just because of the carbohydrate. Carbohydrate is the energy giving food, energy giving compound which gives the energy. Now some skeleton of the some insects, the wall of the cell wall of the microorganism are made up of the carbohydrate, and this is the storage form of the energy to meet the energy requirement by the body. So this carbohydrate is used to store the energy, and this energy is used later, which is demanded by the cell as per the requirement of the body. ठीक है, the body की requirement के according कार्बोहाइड्रेट जो है एनर्जी प्रोवाइड करता है टू द लिविंग ऑर्गेनिज्म. So this is, all these are the function of the carbohydrate, that is the main building block of the cell, used to uh, provide the structure to the cell, provide the body of the cell, then it used to give the energy to the cell for the function of the different functions or different systems of the cell. Now, carbohydrates are categorized in, classified into three categories, that is the monosaccharide, oligosaccharides, and polysaccharides. So this monosaccharide, it is the basic unit of carbohydrate, and this is the smallest unit of the carbohydrate, which is not further hydrolyzed into smaller unit. Okay. So generally it is based on the number of the carbon atom and based on the type of the functional group which is present in the molecule. Now next we have the oligosaccharides, and these oligosaccharides can be further hydrolyzed into smaller units. Okay. So oligosaccharides में we have the disaccharide, trisaccharides and tetrasaccharides. यानी कि two monosaccharides combines and they form the disaccharides. And trisaccharide means three monosaccharide molecules combines and they form the trisaccharides. Tetrasaccharide means four monomer molecules combines and forms the tetrasaccharides. And so in the oligosaccharides, the number of monomer unit is from 2 to 9. ठीक है, उससे ज्यादा number of monomer units नहीं होते. Next is the polysaccharide. Polysaccharide, poly means many units, more than 9. So these polysaccharides are generally non-crystalline and they are non-soluble in water. Okay, insoluble. Generally they are insoluble in water. They are tasteless. They doesn't have any taste. कोई भी टेस्ट नहीं होता है polysaccharides में. And जब आप इसको hydrolyze करते हैं, on hydrolysis, this polysaccharide molecule gives the monosaccharides. ठीक है, तो polysaccharide means larger unit, and hydrolysis जब करेंगे तो that larger unit is converted into the smaller units. So for example, starch molecule, cellulose, जैसे हम सब लोग जानते हैं starch को जब आप लैब में एक्सपेरिमेंट आप लोगों ने परफॉर्म किया था, ओके, दैट इज द इन द COD and the BOD, वहां पर जब आप लोग ने स्टार्च सोल्यूशन बनाया था, स्टार्च इज यूज्ड एज एन इंडिकेटर, तो वहां पर आप लोगों ने देखा था कि स्टार्च वाज इनसॉल्युबल इन वाटर, है ना, थोड़ा सा ल्यूकवार्म वाटर, आपने वाटर को थोड़ा सा हीट किया था, उसके बाद स्टार्च को डिसॉल्व किया था, एंड उसके बाद भी डिसॉल्व करने के बाद भी हम लोग को ट्रांसपेरेंट सोल्यूशन ऑब्टेन नहीं हुआ था. ठीक है, सो ये क्या शो कर रहा है कि दिस पॉलीसैकेराइड इज इनसॉल्युबल इन वाटर, इट इज नॉट प्रॉपर्ली डिसॉल्विंग इन वाटर. इतना क्लियर है आप लोगों का बेटा?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Now these are the monosaccharides. एक बार हम लोग जल्दी जल्दी इसको देख लेते हैं स्लाइड में. That is based upon the number of carbon atom and based upon the number of function groups. So number of carbon atoms के ऊपर बेस्ड जो हमारे monosaccharides होते हैं, these are the triosis. It means 3 carbon atom. Tetrosis means 4 carbon atom. Pentosis means 5 carbon atom. Hexosis means 6 carbon atom, and heptosis means 7 carbon atom. ठीक है, तो triosis एग्जाम्पल इज ग्लिसरल्डिहाइड. टेट्रोसिस में थ्रियोस, पेंटोसिस में राइबोस, राइबिलोस, जाइलोस, एराबिनोस, all these are the pentoses having the 5 carbon atom. हेक्सोसिस में कॉमन एग्जांपल इज द ग्लूकोज, फ्रक्टोज, गैलेक्टोज, मैनोज, है ना, ये सारे कंपाउंड्स हम लोग पहले भी पढ़ चुके हैं. हेप्टोसिस we have the pseudo heptulose, 7 carbon atoms are present in the heptosis. So these are the examples and the classification based upon the number of the carbon atom. Now next is the based upon the functional group. So basically carbohydrates has the two functional groups, that is the aldosis means here the aldehyde group is present, and ketosis means here the ketone group CO group is present. Okay. So the sugar which contains the ketosis ketone group that comes under the category of the ketosis. Example यहाँ पर fructose is a common example, and glyceraldehyde में हमारा glucose is the common example. Okay. Now here we have the derivatives of the monosaccharides. It is very important. Now in the derivative of the monosaccharide, it has the deoxy sugars, that is the DNA deoxyribonucleic acid. So DNA में deoxy sugar present होता है, and this there is a deoxygenation of the ribose which produces the deoxyribose sugar, which is the structural unit of the DNA. Okay. Next is the amino sugars, and this amino sugar contains more one or more amino groups. So जब किसी भी monosaccharide में OH group जो होता है, it is replaced by the amino group NH2 group, then it forms the it is converted into the amino sugar. जैसे glucosamine है, which is forms the chitin, fungal, cellulose and hyaluronic acid. ये आगे मैं आप लोगों को example दिखाऊंगी. Next is the sugar acid. Now this sugar acid means when there is an oxidation of aldehyde group or OH group, hydroxyl group, then it forms the sugar acid. So ascorbic acid is an example of the sugar acid, which is an amino acid. Okay. Then there is a sugar alcohol. So when there is a reduction of aldoses or ketosis, then there is a formation of sugar alcohol. An example of this is the glycerol and mannitol. So this is the derivative of the polysaccharides, which are very important for the living organism. Next is the oligosaccharides, and जैसे मैंने पहले भी बताया था, oligosaccharides are generally formed by the condensation of 2 to 9 monosaccharide units. And depending upon the normal number of monosaccharide units, these oligosaccharide molecules are disaccharides, trisaccharides, tetrasaccharides. Disaccharide means 2 monomer units, sucrose, lactose. Trisaccharide means 3 monomer units, raffinose. Tetrasaccharide means 4 monomer units. ठीक है. So here in the disaccharides, the smallest and the commonest oligosaccharide जो होता है वो हमारा क्या होता है? Disaccharide होता है. Smallest oligosaccharide is the disaccharide, and this disaccharides basically example is the maltose, lactose, sucrose. Maltose is present in the malt sugar, and this is the malt sugar, and it is formed by the combination of two glucose molecules. Glucose is a monosaccharide, and it combines and forms the maltose. Next is the lactose. Lactose is the milk sugar, and it is made up of glucose and galactose. One glucose molecule and another one is the galactose unit. They combine and they form the lactose. So lactose is sourcing of the milk. Soaring of the milk is due to the conversion of lactose into lactic acid. Milk आप लोगों ने देखा होगा कभी खट्टा हो जाता है ना, तो ये किसकी वजह से होता है? लैक्टोज शुगर जो होता है वो लैक्टिक एसिड में कन्वर्ट होता है, and this is responsible for the soaring of the milk. Next we have the sucrose. Sucrose is also known as the cane sugar, and it is found in the sugar cane and the sugar beet. Okay, so all these are the important disaccharides carbohydrate, which is very important. Now next we have the polysaccharides. Now these polysaccharides means poly means large number of monomers are present. Okay, so in the polysaccharides generally these are also called the glycans, and it is made up of repeating units of monosaccharides. Okay, so this monosaccharide is held by the glycosidic bonds, and during the formation of polysaccharide units, the water molecule is released. CO और NH2 बॉन्ड यहाँ प्रेजेंट होता है. सो यहाँ पर जैसे हमारा एसिड और एमिनो ग्रुप जब बॉन्ड करेंगे, तो इन दैट केस amino group releases one hydrogen atom, and acid group जो होगा it gives a OH molecule at, ठीक है, OH group. So this H plus and OH group combines and they form the H2O. in the formation of glycosidic bond. Now this helps in to reduce the bulk making almost it insoluble. तो यहाँ पर polysaccharides जो होते हैं जैसे मैंने पहले भी बताया था, these polysaccharides are insoluble in water. For example, the starch, and they doesn't have any taste. It is tasteless. जैसे पोटैटो को जब आप वॉश करते हैं, then this potato releases large part of the starch, है ना, व्हाइट ट्रांसपेरेंट व्हाइट ओपेक कलर का लिक्विड हमें ऑब्टेन होता है, दैट इज द स्टार्च होता है, एंड दैट स्टार्च को जब आप टेस्ट करेंगे, इट इज टोटली टेस्टलेस, इट डजंट हैव एनी टेस्ट. ओके, सो स्टार्च जनरली जो हमारे पॉलीसेक्राइड्स होते हैं, टू टाइप्स ऑफ पॉलीसेक्राइड्स आर देयर, दैट इज होमोग्लाइकेंस एंड हेटेरोग्लाइकेंस, होमोपॉलीसेक्राइड्स एंड हेटेरोपॉलीसेक्राइड्स. सो homopolysaccharides generally they are made up of the same type of monomer units, okay, that are the homopolysaccharides or homoglycans. Heteropolysaccharide means these are made up of the condensation of two or more types of monosaccharides, yani ki different types of monosaccharides are present in the heteroglycans and same type of monomer units are present in the homoglycans. जैसे for example glycogen, starch, cellulose, यहाँ पर सेम टाइप ऑफ मोनोमर यूनिट्स प्रेजेंट होता है. जैसे ग्लूकेन है, इट इज मेड अप ऑफ ग्लूकोज, फ्रैक्टेन इज मेड अप ऑफ फ्रैक्टोज एंड गैलेक्टेन इज मेड अप ऑफ द गैलेक्टोज. ओके, so same type of monomer units are present for the formation of the polysaccharides. And in the heteroglycans means the heteropolysaccharides, यहाँ पर different monomer units combine होते हैं and they forms the polysaccharides. Is that clear? इतना clear है बेटा आप लोगों को?
Yes,
Hello.
ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Now in the polysaccharides, we have the different types of polysaccharide, that is the storage polysaccharides and structural polysaccharides. So in the storage polysaccharides, that is they are used to store the food, store the energy. So here three different polysaccharides are there, that is taken as an example. First one is the starch. Now this starch is कार्बोहाइड्रेट रिजर्व ऑफ प्लांट, है ना. जनरली स्टार्च प्लांट में प्रेजेंट होता है, एनिमल में तो स्टार्च नहीं प्रेजेंट होता है. इट इज प्रेजेंट इन द प्लांट एंड इज द कार्बोहाइड्रेट reserve, okay, and it is most important dietary source for the animal. So starch is important dietary source and is obtained from the plant, and this starch is a high content percentage of starch. Generally it is high present in the cereals, it is highly present in the roots, highly present in the tubers, in the vegetables. These are the important sources of the starch. Vegetables में पोटैटो के अलावा भी बहुत सारे हमारे वेजिटेबल्स होते हैं जिसमें स्टार्च प्रेजेंट होता है. रूट्स में स्टार्च प्रेजेंट होता है. सीरियल्स में जैसे व्हीट है, राइस है, राइस को जब आप वॉश करेंगे तो व्हाइट लिक्विड हमें ऑब्टेन होता है ऑन वॉशिंग द राइस. दैट व्हाइट लिक्विड इज द स्टार्च. एंड मेज जैसे मक्का है, मक्का को जब आप पीसते हैं, उसको वॉश करते हैं, देन आल्सो वी ऑब्टेन द स्टार्च. ठीक है, तो ये हमारे स्टार्च है which are obtained from the different parts of the plants, from the different plants. Okay, so this starch is a homopolymer and this is made up of the glucose unit. So glucose is the basic unit of the starch and this is also called the glucans. So starch is a polysaccharide compound. Now next example is the glycogen, or this glycogen is generally present in the animal. So it is the carbohydrate reserve in the animal. Energy source glycogen की form में animal में present होता है, and this glycogen is referred as the animal starch. Okay, so generally this glycogen is present in the liver, in the muscles and in the brain cells, and this is found in the plants that do not have in जिन plants में chlorophyll present नहीं होगा, that plants have the glycogen as a carbohydrate. जैसे ईस्ट है, फंगाई है, फंजे, ठीक है, ये हमारे ग्लाइकोजन है. एंड अगेन ग्लाइकोजन में ग्लूकोज इज द रिपीटिंग यूनिट. Finally, last example is the inulin, and inulin is the polymer of fructose. Okay, तो यहाँ पर जैसे ग्लूकोज, ग्लाइकोजन, स्टार्च, they were the homopolymer, they were the polymer of the glucose. In the same way, inulin is a polymer of the fructose, and generally they are found in the garlic. जैसे garlic है, onion है, bulbs हैं, and helia. All these are the important source of the inulin. And this inulin is easily soluble in water, okay, and it is not readily and is readily filtered through the kidney, ठीक, okay. So hence it is used for testing the kidney. अगर kidney functions को test करने के लिए हमें use करना होता है तो inulin is used for testing the functioning of the kidney, okay. Now after the inulin, next important glucose, sorry, next important carbohydrate is the structural polysaccharides, and these structural polysaccharides are examples of the structural polysaccharide is the chitin, and next is the cellulose. Cellulose is the very important and it is a very important part of the plant, है ना. सेल वॉल में प्रोटीन प्रेजेंट होता है, that is the cellulose carbohydrate. So this cellulose is generally present in the plant and it is the most abundant organic substance of the plant kingdom. बेसिकली प्लांट्स में जो हाई परसेंटेज जो प्रेजेंट होता है कार्बोहाइड्रेट का, दैट इज इन द सेलुलोज फॉर्म. And it is totally, cellulose is totally absent in the animal because cell wall में cellulose present होता है and cell wall is absent in the animal. Now next important structural polysaccharide is the chitin. Now this chitin is the second abundant organic substance which is present in the living organism, and it is a complex carbohydrate of heteropolysaccharide type. It means different monomer units are present for the formation of the chitin. So, and this is generally found in the skeleton of some invertebrates, जैसे insects हैं, then crustaceans हैं, इनके skeleton में chitin polymer present होता है, and they generally provides the strength and elasticity to the animal part. Okay, so they provide the body strength to the body and elasticity to the body. And this chitin becomes hard when they are mixed with the calcium carbonate. Okay, hard covering. The shell वगैरह होता है ना, shell covering, which is obtained from the sea. It is a sea animal shell. तो shell की जो covering होती है ऊपर, that is the chitin. That is the covering become hard. Now next important carbohydrate is the protein. Protein आगे भी हम लोग पढ़ेंगे. That is important biomolecule. Sorry, not the carbohydrate. And this protein is the most abundant organic molecule of the living system. Common molecule है. And they generally forms about 50% of the dry weight of the cell. तो cell का जो भी dry weight होता है उसका 50% जो होता है, that is made up of the protein. And it is the important part for the architecture and functioning of the cell के functioning के लिए protein is very important, because protein is जैसे enzyme है, enzyme का main building block जो है, it is a protein. So we have a statement that is all enzymes are protein but all proteins are not enzymes, ठीक है. So we say that कि enzymes और दूसरे components हैं, all these are made up of the proteins. So proteins are also the जो main building block of the protein है, basic unit, smallest unit of the protein is the amino acids. Okay, so amino acid is the basic building block of the protein. So the proteins are the, we can say that one more statement, that is the protein are the polymer of the amino acids. So these proteins on complete hydrolysis, when there is an hydrolysis of the protein, large molecule is hydrolyzed and they are broken into the smaller molecules, then the amino acids are obtained. And there are generally 20 standard amino acids which are repeatedly again and again found in the structure of the proteins, that is in the plant, animal or microbial. When we see the structure of the protein, then we get the common amino acids. And this, in this common, the cargan is the most abundant protein and the rubisco is the most abundant protein of the plant. So cargan is the abundant protein of the animal protein and rubisco is the most common protein in the plant cell. ठीक है. So this protein synthesis, because मैंने पहले भी बताया था कि protein is synthesized in the body of the cell. So this protein synthesis is generally controlled by the DNA. Okay. So classified into three categories, that is the functional proteins, chemical nature and solubility of the protein, and nutritional proteins. Now protein आप लोगों में कंप्लीट यूनिट है, तो प्रोटीन जो है फर्दर मैं डिस्कस करूंगी उसी यूनिट में, ठीक है, बस केवल हम लोग फंक्शनल प्रोटीन डिस्कस कर लेते हैं थोड़ा सा, बिकॉज इट इज वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट. तो फंक्शनल प्रोटीन में वी हैव द स्ट्रक्चरल प्रोटीन विच इज यूज for the making the structure of the body, that is keratin, which is present in the hair, and calgon is present in the muscle cells. Enzymatic proteins, that is protein which is used as an enzyme, are the pepsin. Transport protein, protein which is used for the transportation. And as we all know, hemoglobin is present in the cell, and this blood cells and the hemoglobin is carrier of the oxygen. Okay? Oxyhemoglobin. Next is the hormonal protein, that is protein which is working as an hormone, that is insulin. We all know it is an important protein to control the blood sugar level in the blood. And we have the growth hormones used for the growth of the body. We have the contractile proteins used for the contraction of the muscles. Okay. Storage protein to store the energy, that is albumin. Genetic protein is the nuclear protein which is used to carry the genetic material. And after the genetic protein, next type of the protein is the receptor protein, that is used for the hormones and the viruses. Okay. So this is the functional classification of the protein, and the protein which is classified on the basis of the structure and on the basis of chemical nature and solubility. या हम लोग जब प्रोटीन डिस्कस करेंगे तो प्रोटीन को हम लोग डिटेल में तब डिस्कस करेंगे, बिकॉज प्रोटीन इज अ कंप्लीट यूनिट. ठीक है, ये आप लोगों को मैं पढ़ाऊंगी. Now, after the protein, next important biomolecule is the lipid, and lipid is also a complete unit which you have to study. So, in the lipid, these lipids are the chief concentrated storage form of the energy, which is forming about the 3.5% content of the cell. So, this lipid is used as for storing the energy, है ना? It is used as a form of energy. So generally these lipids are also the organic substances which are generally insoluble in water, but they are soluble in organic solvent. जैसे fat, जितने भी oils होते हैं, है ना? All these oil, ghee, all these are comes under the category of the lipid. For example, if you take the oil, oil is also a fat. Lipid comes under the category of the lipid, and which is soluble in water. It is insoluble in water. Sorry, है ना? तो ऑयल है, देन फैट मॉलिक्यूल्स हैं, ये हमारे क्या है, वाटर में इनसॉल्युबल होते हैं, एंड ऑर्गेनिक कंपाउंड में सॉल्युबल होते हैं, दैट इज लाइक डिसॉल्व्स द लाइक. तो लिपिड, फैट्स, ऑल दीज आर द ऑर्गेनिक कंपाउंड्स एंड दे आर सॉल्युबल इन ऑर्गेनिक सॉल्वेंट्स. जैसे अल्कोहल है, ईथर है, ओके, ऑल दीज आर द ऑर्गेनिक सॉल्वेंट, इथेनॉल, तो इन सब में ये सॉल्युबल होते हैं. Now, what are the important function of the lipids? Because lipids are very important to the living organism. So these lipids are the concentrated fuel reserve of the body. They are used as a fuel reservoir for the storage place for the fuel. Okay, and at the time of the need, when the body requires the energy, at that time they releases the energy. So they are used as a fuel. Fuel क्या होता है? Fuel is used to provide the energy, instant energy. Then lipids are generally constituents of the membrane structure. Plasma membrane में lipid is the central part, and that lipid is sandwiched between the protein molecules. And they regulate the membrane permeability. The process of the membrane permeability is generally just because of the regulation of the lipid, controlling of the lipid. है ना? Lipid जो है, it allows the suitable molecule to pass through the plasma membrane. Okay, so one of the controlling of the membrane permeability is just because of the lipid. It is possible just because of the lipid. Now, third important function, that lipid is the source of fat soluble vitamins. Different vitamins are present which are necessary for the living organism, and these vitamins are fat soluble. Okay, so they are the source of the fat soluble vitamins which get solubilized in the lipids. Next, lipids are important cellular metabolic regulators. जो भी metabolic reactions हो रहे होते हैं, that are just because of the lipids present in the body, okay, present in the cell. And this lipids, one more important function of the lipid is used. They are the insulating material, and they protect the functional organs of the cell. इंटरनल ऑर्गन्स ऑफ दिस सेल, ठीक है। तो इनको जो प्रोटेक्ट करना होता है, इंसुलेशन प्रोवाइड करना होता है, दैट इज जस्ट बिकॉज ऑफ द लिपिड। फैट मींस bulky molecules, fatty molecules. So because of their fatness, because of their large size, they insulates the internal organ of the cell. Now there are the types of the lipid molecules: simple lipids, complex lipids, and derived lipids. Simple lipids contains the fats and the oils and the waxes. Complex lipids are made up of the simple lipids. That simple lipids combines and they form the complex lipids. And here we have the phospholipids, glycolipids, and lipoproteins. Further हम लोग discuss करेंगे when we study the lipid unit. And next is the derived units and terpenes. Okay, तो ये सारी चीजें हम लोग next जब यूनिट पढ़ेंगे, when we discuss about the lipid, तो उसमें हम लोग पढ़ेंगे, ठीक है। इतना क्लियर है आप लोगों का बेटा?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
And okay, next important biomolecule is the enzyme. एंजाइम भी आप लोगों को पढ़ना है। देखिए, जो आप लोगों को पढ़ना है इंपॉर्टेंट यूनिट्स हैं, दैट आर द प्रोटीन, न्यूक्लिक एसिड, प्रोटीन, लिपिड्स एंड एंजाइम्स, ठीक है। तो इनका डिटेल जो होगा बायोमोलिक्यूल्स का, वो मैं जब आप लोगों को यूनिट्स पढ़ाऊंगी फर्दर, तब मैं आप लोगों को बताऊंगी। ओके, तो इतना आप लोगों का
Okay, ma'am.
क्लियर है? ओके, एंड इफ यू हैव एनी डाउट, आप लोग मुझसे पूछ लीजिएगा अगर कोई भी डाउट हो तो। आप लोग
मैम वो
पढ़ते हैं?
पीडीएफ सेंड कर दीजिएगा।
हम कर देंगे बेटा सेंड। जो मैं आप लोगों को बताती हूँ, आप लोग पढ़ते हैं उस चीज को कि नहीं?
यस मैम, पढ़ रहे हैं।
पढ़ रहे हो? लेकिन आप लोगों ने पूछा तो नहीं है